how did you get started at a very young age with this?
I first started when my mom and dad would actually bring me out here just to kind of see the puppies. I was about 2 or 3 years old, and they just thought I was a young kid who would enjoy puppies, and I just kept wanting to come out, and eventually we would come out in the winter, and I would go for dog sled rides, and then just naturally got on the runners by myself, and the rest is history, I guess.
How old were you when you started racing?
I did my first race when I was 7. They have they used to have quite a few kids races. They would I think it was like a 1 dog 1 mile or a 2 dog 2 mile, um, and yeah, we did that one for a few years and moved up to the bigger races.
So have you done pretty much every race or been involved in the John Beargrease ever since then? Or
Yeah, with the Beargrease, ever since I was little, the guy that I co-owned the kennel with, Richard Laux, he was doing like the marathon, and so I was handling for that, and well, pretty much following my mom around while she handled, and I would just kind of pet the dogs, um, and then when I was 15, I decided I wanted to do it myself, and so I have been doing the half marathon almost every year for the last 13 years already.
so what does it take to be a dog sled race?
Um, I guess there's a lot of qualities. I mean, the number one thing I think is just being mentally and physically strong enough to take care of your team and lead your team. Um, you need a lot of dedication and just to be out here every day training. And so between Richard and I, we have the we're able to be out here every day training and taking care of the dogs, and it's more like a full-time job than just a hobby, and it's an everyday thing, and making sure each dog is healthy and getting to know each dog, and watching them while you're running or training, and making sure that everyone looks good, looks healthy, and just taking care of yourself and the dogs to the best of your ability.
What are the mental challenges during a race?
There can be a lot of them. Just being out there for so long in the dark. I know that's a big one for me, is just being out there completely by myself and worrying about every single thing that could go wrong, and dealing with just watching the dogs, and kind of sometimes I'll like second guess myself, like, oh, is that dog running funny? Do I need to stop and check on them? Are they going to be able to continue with the race? Or I think just being out there by yourself and just realizing that it's just you and it's all on you to take care of yourself and your entire team can be one of the biggest struggles, but that can also be pretty empowering too.
I guess in that vein, what kind of things can happen?
Um, all sorts of things.
I mean, sleds could break, dogs
Yeah.
could get loose, kind of
Yep.
things. What kind of things have happened to you, like in those?
Injuries can be one, and if you end up having to carry a dog, that can be, I mean, that changes your entire race. You're pretty much not racing anymore, you're just trying to finish. You could run into animals out on the trail. We've been fortunate enough to not run into any dangerous animals. Usually it's just a bunch of rabbits and fox, deer, that sort of thing.
There's dangerous animals out there?
Well, moose can be a big one. They can trample teams, and they can be pretty dangerous for the dogs. So just if they get spooked, but we've been fortunate enough to not have a.
Have you met a moose out there?
I've seen them, but never had a bad encounter with them. So yeah, sleds breaking. I mean, that can happen. That's pretty rare, but just because that's one of the big things that you're taking care of while you're prepping for a race, is just making sure that your sled is looking good, making sure it's sturdy, making sure everything's ready to go. So
Your focus, and you've mentioned this many times, is the dogs.
yeah, yep, that's what this whole hobby is about, I think. I mean, you just have to be a big dog lover, and you just have to really love and appreciate them. This whole thing really is about the dogs, and It's how well you prepare them, how well you train them, how well, I mean, it starts, I guess there really is no end to the training season. Even in the off season, you want to make sure that they're getting their exercise, that they're staying healthy, that you're taking care of their paws, their muscles, kind of everything, and that they're eating right, staying hydrated. So I mean, yeah, it's totally what dog sledding is about, is the dogs.
So with that, do you have any particular breed of dogs? Sometimes people think of Huskies as the breed that
Yeah.
race, but that's not true, is it?
Very few people use Siberian Huskies, which is kind of the classic big fluffy gray dog, blue eyes, and so I know that's what a lot of people think of. We have Alaskan Huskies, which actually isn't a true breed, it's just kind of a mutt. And so that's what we have, is the Alaskan Huskies, and they are mixed with Hound just for the racing component. Siberian Huskies are typically a little bit slower, and so that's why they started breeding with other breeds, so that they could get a faster race dog.
What is it about the mutt breed,
Um,
the Alaskan?
I mean, it depends on how they've been bred, but a lot of times they have like a bigger chest just so they have more lung capacity. Some people breed based on feet just so that they have better feet, and so their feet are tougher. Kind of that long, lean, just athletic type is what people seem to be looking for.
So how much could a dog by itself pull?
Oh, I mean, quite a bit. They're strong. I'd be able to get on a sled and just have one dog pull me. I guess I don't know what their max is, but that would be about like, plus pounds. I don't know with the sled and me. So
It would take me would be 200 plus pounds. So maybe one would be enough.
yeah. So I mean, they're strong dogs. So when you get a whole team of them, I mean, they're incredible.
And what does it take to train a dog? Is it the lead dog? Is it the dogs that are behind? What goes into your choice of where a dog goes to?
It seems that it starts when they're young and kind of how they're interacting, even with just their litter, and you'll kind of see their personalities develop, and you'll see who has that leader tendencies. You'll see who is kind of the strong-headed one that wants to be out front, even when they're just puppies running around. And so then it's just once they're a little bit older, getting them used to the harness first of all. You can even hook up like a little rope behind the harness when they're a few months old, and like 6 months old or so, and just get them used to wearing that harness and running around with it on. And then once they're old enough to actually start training with the team and getting hooked up, and it's kind of just where they fit and where they fall into place, and it seems like the leaders are just kind of naturally leaders, and so it's just recognizing that trait when they're puppies and when they're that age. And our leaders are really, they need to like drive hard and obviously lead the team. They need to know their directions. They need to be able to listen to us as mushers, and so everybody else in the team, a lot of it is who they get along well with, for us anyways, and where they run well, and pretty much as long as it's not the leader, they do pretty well with switching places in the back.
You speak to these traits as leader. I mean, are they keeping the other dogs in line?
Yeah, I mean, we want them to, just even while we're hooking up, as long as they're staying out straight, holding the line tight. I mean, we don't want them like zigzagging around the trail. We don't want them looking back all the time. We don't want them chasing deer or fox or whatever it is we may see. They need to be listening to us, just like directions, and yeah.
So the other dogs just kind of line up based on where you think they fit.
Yeah, just a lot of with us in our kennel, we just try to match them up with who they get along with, and we have some sassy girls that only like to run with certain people, certain dogs. So
So with that then what are they fed?
we feed a lot of meat. We bought a couple 100 pounds of meat at the beginning of the season. We also use kibble. We just have to make sure that it has the right protein and fat ratio. Um, we're looking at the ingredients in the kibble just to make sure that there's not a lot of byproducts. Um, we really want to feed them kind of the best food. So we're really wanting to make sure that we're feeding them the best quality food and making sure they're getting a lot of protein and fat from the meat as well.
What would the life be like for a sled dog if not racing?
Um, I guess just like any old dog, I mean, they're going to be hyper dogs just because by nature they want to run and they want to be outside and they want to be active every single day. Um, you'll see it when we start hooking up, and you can even hear them barking now just as we're starting to booty and everything. But I mean, just by nature, these guys want to go. They want to go every day, and they're very, very active dogs. So I mean, it's difficult to have a sled dog as a pet.
What do they do in the summertime?
We have two big pens that we allow our dogs to run around in, and some of them have dog houses. One of the pens has dog houses in it, and then the other one is just kind of a free run. So just making sure that they're still getting that exercise, and we won't feed the highest quality food in the summertime. We'll feed a little bit less just because they aren't running the like 30 plus miles a day. But we're still making sure they're hydrated and taking care of them and just making sure they're getting their exercise.
So when you're racing, and this kind of going back to the food, are you carrying food and supplies with you?
I will, yep. I'll carry some food and supplies with me. Most races have like a mandatory list of gear that you have to carry. We do carry some food. Usually we don't stop to snack just because a lot of the races that we do are a little bit shorter. For the people who are like in the marathon or like up in the Iditarod and stuff like that, they definitely have to carry enough so that they can stop and snack their dogs on the trail.
As you are preparing for this John Beargrease, what are you doing? I mean, what are all the things that happen? Are you thinking about the trail? Are you thinking about snow? Do you run it at all?
Snow's the big one. We'll get up on the Beargrease Trail a couple of times. Usually we run the older section of the trail, the one that went from like Duluth to Two Harbors. We'll run portions of that just to get some of that hill training in, because out here it's pretty flat. It's mostly just making sure the dogs are ready, because I know that I'm physically and mentally ready for it, and making sure all the gear is ready, making sure the gang line is good, making sure the harnesses are all good, making sure nothing is going to rip or tear or break during the race, anything like that. So just making sure everything else is in line, because I know that I'm
So
fine.
when you have these, this is a 4-day event, 5-day event?
The Beargrease is the full marathon is, yep. The half marathon is about 24 hours.
Okay. So when you're running the full, correct?
Nope, I'm just doing the half marathon.
Okay.
Yep.
Then so about 24 hours. So in that 24 hours, will the dogs be expended, energy-wise,
Yeah.
and you and?
Yep. Yeah, I mean we'll all be pretty tired because we're running like through the night, and we'll run about 4 hours at a time, and then we'll rest for about 4, and then we'll run another 4, and then rest 4, and then do the final 4 hours. So.
And I have to ask this because it's Minnesota. This morning it was 18 below when I woke up.
Yep.
How do you rest out there?
You know, a lot of the checkpoints are fortunate enough to have buildings around, so you can go in and warm up if you need to. Otherwise, just curling up with the dogs too is no problem. I mean, they're warm, so we've got blankets and straw for them, and making sure the dogs are rested is kind of the biggest thing, because I can survive 20 hours with no sleep, but just making sure that they're rested and that they're being taken care of. That's the big thing during the race.
So will you get some sleep in that 24 hours?
Usually not. Maybe a quick nap, hour nap, but um, I mean, our main focus is the dogs during that race, and like I said, I'll be fine. I can always sleep the next day, so it's not a big deal.
Would you have anything any thoughts about anything I haven't asked you
Um,
that comes to mind?
Nothing I can
I
think
did. I
of.
did have that one. I mean,
Oh,
you're
sure.
out there in the middle of not. You're out there in areas that all people don't generally walk,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what kind of things are you seeing out there that some people won't see? The beauty of it.
Yeah, just the beauty of the outdoors and nature, and you just realize really how beautiful it is out there. And um, I guess I don't know what word I could use to describe the feeling of being somewhere where, I mean, you don't see people a lot of the time. You don't see the other teams very often. You'll see people every once in a while at a road crossing, but I mean, that can be hours between when you do see that. So um, I guess it's almost kind of eerie, but it's just very, very beautiful at the same time. So just being out totally by yourself and everything is just completely still, and just seeing the snow on the trees, and it's really pretty out there.
Is it? I gotta have to ask this question. Is it competitive?
I mean, it is, yeah, but the race itself, it seems like the competitiveness kind of needs to happen starting back in August when you start training. And so that's when you need to start. I mean, if you're out here every day, if you're training your dogs, then that is going to show. And so there's not too much more that you can do during the race to be super competitive. It's just all the daily um, tasks that nobody really sees.
And I know we're going to be going out and seeing you run the
Yep.
dogs. So do you run them like you would in a race, kind of? Is that what's happening now?
Um, yeah, for the most part. I mean, you want to train for what you're going to be doing in the race, and you want to train for the speeds that you want to be running, the distances that you want to be running. You need to train for all that ahead of time, because you can't train your dogs, say 9-10 miles per hour, and then go try and win it with 14 miles per hour. I mean, the dogs would just be totally run down after that. So
That's interesting to me. How fast are you going when you're running in this race? How fast generally is? What's an average speed, do you think?
probably about maybe 11 miles per hour. I guess I'm not sure if we've been training about 11 to 12 miles per hour. I know some people will train like 14, 15 miles per hour, and so those are usually the people that are finishing in the top few places there. So
So what's the secret word to get them going?
just say let's go. I mean, these dogs are so ready to go. There's nothing. It's more important one is to stop them.
What is
So,
that one?
just say whoa. Mostly just step on the brake. And so we've had so little snow out here that it's been tough to stop once we get up on the trail, just because there's no place to hook down to, or we can't really stop for an extended period of time. So
All right. So would you, do you know the names of the dogs that you're going to be running this year?
um uh well, I'm hoping that we're going to be using Bob and Ziba and Jake and Zeke and Zorro. We have it down to about like 8 to 10 dogs right now, so we still will have to see how the next 2 weeks go and just narrow it down.
How many dogs will
100%.
be in the team?
8.
And can you swap out dogs?
Nope. Nope. We'll start with those 8 dogs, and if you need to drop one, if one gets injured or if one is just too tired or whatever other reason you may need to drop a dog for, you're able to do that at the checkpoints. Otherwise, then you'll finish with 7 then if you have to drop a dog, or I think you have to finish with at least 5 dogs. Otherwise, no swapping out or.
At the checkpoints, are the dogs checked?
At one of them they are. They for sure have one vet check. Otherwise, if you have concerns about your dogs, you can certainly bring it to the vet team, or you can call a vet over or vet tech, and they can check out the dogs. And so we have vets that pretty much do this for free, which is really awesome. So we've got a lot of awesome veterinarians and vet techs that volunteer their time and energy and supplies and come up and take care of our dogs to the best of their ability, which is really awesome as well.
So do you have like a radio on you in case something happens?
No, the checkpoint is all within probably about like a 2-acre area, maybe more. But we're usually like on a road or in a field or next to a building, and they're always readily available for us.
What kind of support beyond just, do you have people at these checkpoints waiting for you?
Yep. We have our handlers that are at the checkpoints, and so they'll have our gear, and they have supplies for the dogs. They'll have like the straw and the blankets for the dogs. They'll have the food. I know that in the marathon, there's some checkpoints that they have to do all by themselves, and so everything that they're going to need for that checkpoint, they have to have in their sled bag. And so that's just kind of the independent ones, and usually that's to help prep them for like the Iditarod or Yukon races, and some of the bigger races that they're trying to qualify for. But with mine, I'll have my handlers at every checkpoint, and taking care of the dogs is the most important thing, and making sure that they're resting, that they're eating, that they're getting hydrated. We'll give them like an electrolyte mix, and that's kind of the most important thing. And like I said, they have like the vets and the vet team. They're all there for the dogs as well. They do usually have a first aid person for the humans as well. Usually we're so focused on the dogs that we don't really care that much about ourselves. But and then even out on the trail too, they have signs. They have road crossing volunteers, which pretty much everyone who does this race, they're volunteers. In other races that don't have those road crossing volunteers, they've had teams that have gotten hit before, and so these people are helping the mushers, they're helping the dogs, and they're just making sure everybody is safe.
Excellent, thank you. Oh.